And of course, there was some outrage by not just Republicans, but sort of hawkish Democrats, including Kirsten Powers from the Daily Beast, saying that Obama sided with Morsi in the coup because he expressed deep concerns, quote, expressed deep concerns about the way in which his removal from power was perpetrated. But, I mean, that's pretty much all we're going to get from the Obama administration is deep concerns. We're not going to get a suspension of aid. We're not going to get real action against the military government because we know that at the end of the day, the U.S. government kind of likes a pro-Western military government. That's the beast they know, right? I mean, it's a market for military goods.
Like the closest connections that we have in the government of Egypt are really, with the Egyptian military. There's been a lot of cooperation between our military and the Egyptian military leaders. They are viewed as the most sort of pro-Western, pro-United States aspect of that country. So the fact that it's the Egyptian military driving Morsi out of power and installing this transition government, that's kind of helpful and favorable to the United States. It may not necessarily reinforce the idea of true democracy and that elections matter, but it's helpful somewhat to the United States that it's the Egyptian military which seems to be running things right now. And the question is, can the United States and the Obama administration somehow thread the needle and figure out, okay, who's going to end up in power? What the Muslim street, the Egyptian street, what role will they play? And can the United States say anything or do anything that appeases them? Because a lot of the protesters are also very anti-American.
Yeah, David, it's something that we're going to be keeping a close eye on. I think that one of the concerns that I've aired, obviously, is that essentially that there could be blowback here, that this is more United States intervention of one kind or another. And at the end of the day, we're going to be held responsible for what the military does. And they've shown a tendency toward authoritarianism. They've killed protesters, and then they came out showing bottles of whiskey and guns that they found in Muslim Brotherhood, sort of encampments, which was clearly staged. You can say many things about members of the Muslim Brotherhood, but I think it's fair to say that they wouldn't be drinking whiskey. And it's sort of a classical tactic of, these kind of military police state regimes to sort of plant these things in the encampments and say, well, look here what happened. And they even killed a cop by accident while they were mowing down these Muslim Brotherhood protesters. And they pretended that he was killed by protesters, but he was, it's just, it's upsetting. But one thing that I've heard from people that are more familiar with Egyptian history and politics is that, well, the military backed Mubarak, and, back before Mubarak, the military brought Nasser to power, and Sadat was from the military. Every leader that Egypt has had since its independence from essentially British occupation has come from the military. And then when Mubarak stepped aside, it was because the military wanted him to do it. The military was cool with Morsi at one point. This guy al-Sisi that took over was defense minister in his cabinet. And the military essentially controls something like 40% of the Egyptian economy. They have a tremendous hold on private industry. They're, in essence, the strongest institution in that society. And for better and for worse, they'll probably still be the hand that moves it under any kind of a government at this stage. And that is probably not what you want if you want to develop a more robust civil society. But I think it's just something to keep in mind that even when the military is not technically in power, they're always pretty much in power in Egypt. They really control something like 40% of the economy. They're in industries that we wouldn't even think of, like housing and finance. And that's just fascinating. We did have some technical difficulties getting my friend Alice Fordham, who's a reporter for The National, on the line. She's there in Cairo, and I want to get her take. I'm hoping that we'll be able to get her a little bit later on. We're having a little bit of trouble right now making this international call. Coming up next, we're going to be talking with Nancy Cohen. She's the author of Delirium. It's about the counter-backlash to the sexual revolution in the United States, giving her take on some of how these red states have been cracking down on abortion rights. You're not going to want to miss this, so stay tuned when Take Action News continues after this.